Hello Aries friends, I'm Annie Botticelli and welcome to my Aries October 2021 Astrology Must Knows. This horoscope report is for you if Aries is your sun sign or your moon sign or your rising sign, or if you have any other placements in Aries. Mercury, Venus, Mars, what we're going to talk about here is part of your astrological picture. If you're a late degree Aries, so if your birthday is like April 11th through the rest of the sign, or 20 to 29 degree placements, and the later in April and the later in degree, the more this is true, I highly recommend you also listen to my Taurus reports because you cuspy people have a more complex read and you need more information to look at your bigger astrological picture. Definitely go to anniehelpsyou.com where you can see all of the free goodies I make for you each month. It's not just videos that I do for you each month. So you can see the interface for all of the things that I do for you at anniehelpsyou.com. If you forget that email address by the time we're done with the video, you can just look at the notes below the video. Click on the little more button with the arrow, and if you're listening to the podcast version, there will be notes there as well. You can always just search for Annie Botticelli on Google, and I'm all over the place, so you can find everything there. Okay, so what is going on this month? I'm calling this month the Big Wake Up and Eclipse Rumblings. This is a time when Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, Mercury all wake up. The month is distinctly split in almost half, with the retrograde energies being in the earlier part of October, still internal, still having a lack of clarity, still kind of cleaning up unfinished business, wrapping up loose ends. And then as the month progresses, we're getting ready to open into the most grand golden opportunity period, one of them of the whole entire year in November. And I'm actually going to give you a segment after we're done with these Aries specific things that looks into the visuals of the timeline of the eclipse dates, of the eclipse season, of how they mesh together. The Venus retrograde, Venus rules a lot of things, love, beauty, money, all kinds of stuff like that, that is going to start rolling in November. But before then, we've got this a couple of weeks of a golden period. So we'll talk about that. But you know now that October is very much in preparation of using that November launch period for the best that you possibly can, because it's a very magical time. So the first thing on my mind specifically for Aries is that Pluto is waking up, and Pluto has been aspecting your 10th house for a long time, okay? Whenever Pluto is somewhere, it's there for a long time. Now that it's in the late degree, it's been lurking around 24 degrees. It's definitely there in the 10th house for all early, middle, and late degree placements. Sometimes these outer planets, when they're in their earlier degrees, are influencing different placements when you're later in the spectrum, but not Pluto. Pluto is doing its thing in the 10th house for all of the Aries placements. So what does that mean? Pluto tells a story of grow or die, okay? And this relates to your work, career, and life purpose sector. The things that you're doing in the world, your life purpose, what you came here to do. And whether that's monetized or not, if you don't need money, that's like your purpose, what you came here to do, what you're giving to the world, your service to the world. So that could be, just that, or it could be your work, your employment, and your purpose in that way. It also has to do with the energy of your inner authority, healing father issues. Sometimes mom is rolled in there too, parental types of things, authority issues, things like that. But I want to tell a story about Pluto in the 10th house, because this is really going to illustrate for you to understand what's being woken up here and what this long-term storyline that is really, really active right now. There's a story of this guy who had a business for 30 years and he had great success, and then an astrologer told him, Pluto's going into your 10th house. It's time for you to do something different with your business. And, not just do the traditional things that you had done. You can still do those things, but you have to be able to expand. You have to keep growing, and not just growing like into different of the same business, but growing in how you're doing your business. And he said, well, I've been successful. I've been doing this for 30 years. I know everything about this. I'm not going to change anything I'm doing. And the guy was bankrupt within 6 months after being successful for 30 years. And that's because Pluto was saying grow or die, and he decided that he was not going to grow. Okay, and I have a very personal story with this myself because, like you, I have strong Aries placements. I am a middle degree Aries rising. And so when Pluto got into my 10th house is the time when I brought all of the knowledge I had and teaching experience that I had with self-development and coaching and astrology, and started my YouTube channel. And I did not want to do it. I wanted to do it to help people, but I was technophobe. I didn't want to make the commitment because I have a ton of Sag in my chart, and I didn't want to be bound to have to show up to do horoscopes every month for the rest of my life. And I was scared, and I didn't know the first thing I had never done horoscopes before. But I saw Pluto there, and Pluto kept saying, Annie, you have to grow or die. So when the opportunities came around me and people were saying, you should have your own TV show, you should, you need to go on YouTube. And I was like, yeah. And Pluto got into that sector, and I took the leap. And it's just my work. If you know, my work has been expanding in the world ever since, because I followed this. Now you can go in any bookstore anywhere in America and many other places in the world, and my book is there, like on the shelf. It's amazing. It's a dream come true. But if I would not have been watching Pluto egging me on, saying, okay, this might be hard, you got to go to the next stage, you got to do this now, you got to do this now, and not, if I would have just rested on my laurels, if I would have just been lazy, I would not have been able to accomplish my life purpose in my work arena. And this is what Pluto is telling you too. So if there's something that you are supposed to be doing that involves you breaking out of the old way of doing things, Pluto is saying, grow or die. And usually it's not meaning literally you're going to die, but it can feel like that. Like you have to do something, like it's your purpose, and you don't want to die without doing it. You don't want to die with your song still in you. So this is a very powerful, long-term, consistent force that's making you summon everything that you have to put towards what spirit is showing up through synchronicity, through intuition, what you're supposed to be doing. And so here is your excuse, here is your impetus to say, okay, that thing, go do it. And now we're talking about a major open window that's going to come in November, and October is a time for you to do your research, wrap up loose ends, start to look into how you're going to implement things, and then use the golden opportunity in November to make things happen. Maybe it's starting a new business. Maybe it's going to a new division of what you've already been doing. Maybe it's turning your hobbies into work. Maybe it's starting a nonprofit. Maybe it's turning the service that you can provide for people into a free service if you don't need to make money. All of these things are calling out, and Aries people who are going to receive the call and answer it are going to be very handsomely rewarded through fulfillment and success in the world. Okay, so that's the first thing that's on my mind for you. The next thing is that Saturn and Jupiter have been influencing your 11th house, and Saturn and Jupiter are also waking up this month in October. As the planets wake up, they bring back into the forefront the stories that had been going earlier in the year, but then became dormant and more internal. If you were working on something early in the year, if you had things that were flowing well for you at that time, they might have gone into the backdrop, and you're saying, what the heck happened? What happened is these planets went retrograde. Okay, so now as they wake up and go direct, you're going to start moving forward. And it can be in any area of your life, but some specific areas where Saturn and Jupiter are trying to help you and trying to build things for you have to do with community. There's a huge thing going on for Aries now. Long-term story that has to do with really picking your friendships and who you want to invest in the future. There are people in your life that have either been taking advantage of you or who are not offering back to you the same type of energy that you have been bringing. And for some reason, you're reluctant to let these people go, or you don't even have to decide you're not friends with them anymore. You just have to change your availability and change your approach towards what you're putting into those relationships, because there are other people, some people that have been in your life for a really long time, like foundational people, that you might go back to and start feeding energy again into those relationships, those solid ones maybe that you've had from childhood even, that are really people who have been there for you, who would be there for you, who aren't flaky, who aren't flagrant with your efforts towards the friendship, and that's all happening. Now, also the idea of building a community, whether it's an online community or whether it's something within your community, Community-based efforts are getting a massive amount of support and are waking back up at this time. So just kind of be on the lookout for that, for the role that you have to play. Aries people are instigators, and we are instigators for better or worse. I often tell this story about one of my big wake-up calls in my 20s, where I was arrested for disorderly intox in my 20s, put my whole job on the line and everything that I was doing, and I sat there in that situation, and Spirit spoke to me so loudly saying, Annie, is this what you want to do with your tendency to start energy? Because there was fighting around wherever I would go. Sometimes I would instigate fights. You know, that was just like an agitation, for better or worse, that Aries energy brings to the table. And if you're using that in a way, or it's manifesting in a way that's causing conflict for you, or not getting you in good situations, or feeling like it's not living up to your highest potential, then you might be having these wake-up calls like I did at that time, where I said, okay, from now on, I'm not drinking anymore. I stopped that almost 20 years ago. I'm going to put my power into using my tendency to rile people up and get them inspired and instigate, you know, this energy of forward movement. I'm going to use that as a force of good. And so this is a time for you to really be considering that. You know, are you destined to be a community leader? Are there things that are needed in your smaller microcosm, in the larger microcosm, what that you can serve, that you can instigate, that you can promote? And probably there are. Okay, so maybe that's just at your family level, taking more leadership there, or maybe it's on a global level. But this is, you know, a big storyline that's coming through, and as these planets are waking up in October, you're going to very likely feel the call to make some major changes in your life. And if you have to make some big decisions, the inner decisions are being made in October. The outer decisions, where you're announcing it to the world, where you're giving your oomph, where you're making your declaration, where you're making your line in the sand, November holds better promise for those, because it has more clarity and oomph and ambition and zest for forward movement, which again, when we get to that segment later, I'll talk to you about the dates and show you, you know, on the timeline why we want to wait until then for the big things that we're doing. But this is a fine time for you to make the decision. Something else that's happening for Aries is that Chiron, the wounded healer, is continuing to move through our sign. This is a long-term transit, and it is definitely awakening all of the inner wounds, all of the self-esteem issues, the confidence issues, the foundational things that happened when we were children, even in the womb. People think that they're not imprinted by the stuff that happens to their parents or their mother or their surroundings while they're in the womb, and that's just not true. And we will see this more and more over time as this will be proven. Things that happen to people at their birth, when the mom is pregnant, it does create information systems that are translated through experience through the life of the child as they live their lives and get older. And so there are foundational things that happened to you, that happened in your ancestry, that you're having an opportunity to triumph over and to make good choices to heal. So that's very exciting. Something else that's interesting that's going on is that Uranus is interrupting stability, moving through stable Earth sign, interrupting, bringing Earth and climate occurrences, crazy weather. And there's more to it, the story of the climate picture, than just this, but this is very, very, very big. Uranus moving through Taurus. And for Aries, the chart of the Aries person, this is also going through the house of Taurus. Okay, so this is running double duty. Every placement that goes on in the cosmos is double duty for Aries, because since we have what's called a natural chart, which means that our Aries placement that aligns with the first house means that all the placements fall into their natural houses. So that means everything we experience is double or to the nth degree. So instability in your finances could be causing you to ask different questions and cause you to start to diversify your income or diversify your financial picture. All right, one of the first things I learned when I was learning about investing, because I was in that world for work as well in the past, and my father trained me in these types of things as I was growing up. And as I read all of the books by Warren Buffett and all of those people, the first thing they would say is you have to diversify which means you don't want to have all of your financial eggs in one basket in case that basket drops and the eggs break. So this is a time where you're starting to have strange ideas maybe about what you can do to bring in more income, and that maybe one of your income streams is not stable enough on its own, but by having multiple income streams, something that tends to go up while the other things go down could be something that is part of your bigger picture. Also, Uranus moving through Taurus is telling us the story of not putting our faith in impermanence, and life is full of mostly impermanent things. The things that are permanent are our our connection to spirit, our connection to our life purpose of what we're here to do, and finding more clarity and doing stuff on those lines, and our soul relationships that were with us before we incarnated and will be with us after we incarnate. So putting power in those three things that do have permanence are things that are good to start shifting the mental viewpoints. Is that many things in our lives are just not going to be stable or permanent, and the more we're okay with that, the better relationship we can have with the changes that are coming in the world. And there are massive amounts of changes. All kinds of stuff is going on with changing the food supplies, with, places being burnt up that were not having water, that were our farmlands. There's just so many things that are changing. But that connection to spirit is our ever-present grounding cord that we can always remember. Our food doesn't come from the crops in California. Our food comes from divine spirit. And that might be part of your purposes in learning what spirit wants you to do for your mission to facilitate the new ways of things, the new ways of earning money, the new ways of having sustenance. And many Aries placements are going to take some leadership roles with that type of work. Okay, so something else that's a must know for Aries at this time is that we still have lots of movement through Libra, which is making oppositions for Aries. Those are 180-degree placements. We are going to be very torn between our things that we want to do and need to do and things that people in our lives need, our clients, our family. We're also going to be having a lot of energy where our partnerships are requiring or that we are wanting to put energy into those, and we have to try to basically hold the candle at both ends without becoming exhausted somehow. So that's happening. But it is a time when, as the planets move through Libra, then as they move through Scorpio, that we go deeper into our relationship space and we focus more on the power of partnership and how much better the efforts that we have can be when we're getting support from other people and supporting other people. So September, October, November, big time to be connecting with new people, reconnecting with old people in your life. Not that they're old in age, but old from, your older previous times. And very much asking the question, what kind of support do you need? Finding that support, and what kind of support can you give, and giving that support. So that is a major must know at this time. Venus is continuing to move through the 8th house, and that is going to make us be questioning, and also the other planets moving through Scorpio, things about our investments and our resources and, wills and estate planning and things like that. And it can also give a little boost for making some surprise money or finding money or sweepstakes or lotto. So just kind of pay attention if you have a nudge there. As Venus moves into Sagittarius, this is heralding the time that's coming next of the Sagittarian mini era, and that's always super amazing for Aries placements because it's a fire energy. So we're starting to have little sparks of that, which we really need this month because we're going to be very bogged down in October and November in the Scorpio energies, which are emotional energies, which are going to cause us to go very deep within ourselves, go deep within our relationships, and we might feel like we are trying to make progress, but that things around us need support. And so if you just don't push any agendas at this time and instead just kind of see what is showing up in your relationship space and your inner emotional space and take the time to work with that, it will really help you to fly even higher when these Sag energies come into the picture, and you will feel much better, much freer, much lighter. While Jupiter is going direct here, it's going to be a very, very big change in how we've been experiencing things, because Jupiter is the benevolent, the benefic, the great benefic it's called. And it is also, benevolent in the way that it's seeking to support us and it can help us to be more optimistic when it's going direct. So if you've been kind of more depressed or less motivated or kind of feeling more directionless, for a good part of the year, like at least since June or even sooner, but prior to that, it might be because Jupiter and Saturn were retrograde, and now that they're awakening, it's giving you more clarity, giving you more direction, giving you more oomph for doing what has to be done. It also can make your creative juices flow with more zest. But do know that this is probably going to be an emotional month, and that the more you're present with those things, the more you'll be able to fly later. Okay, so let's see. There are going to be more salty aspects than sweet ones this month. That is a major must know. This has been an annoying trend since June, July, August, September, and October. We have more salty aspects than sweet ones, and we feel that. It's not the be-all, end-all. You don't have to fear this or think it's going to be a bad month because of that. But they're annoying little bumps in the road when you're trying to make progress. So if you just don't force things and just sort of go with the flow, things are going to be a lot easier for you. And we're going to talk more about that because in my little timeline that we're going to talk about next, I also have a list of things to focus on for the better part of October, and then the list of things to start to transition to focus on towards the end of October and into November. Okay, so to understand the theme, the big wake up for October 2021, it's easier, I think, to see it in a visual context, and also to understand October compared to November and December, and what we've got going on in this cluster of time will help you to better understand the energy of this month. All right, so the first thing of note that we've got going on is that these outer planets are waking up. So Pluto on October 6th, Saturn on the 11th, Jupiter on the 18th, and then we've got Mercury also waking up. This is an inner planet, but we've still been in this Mercury retrograde period, since September. So the energy for the first half or so of the month is very much retrograde, okay? And then every day, the 19th, 20th, 21st, every day we march into October, later in the month, these energies that just woke up start to get stronger, all right? So by the time we're at November 3rd, Mercury retrograde is clear, and we enter this golden period of the 3rd through the 17th before the Venus shadow period starts. Venus shadow starts November 18th, gets stronger as the month of November goes on. Venus goes retrograde on December 19th. Okay, so you can see this time between November 3rd and the 17th is this golden opening where these planets have gained a lot of momentum. Mercury is completely strong. Venus has not yet started to slip. So now that we understand this, we'll get back to some of these other pieces here. Let's talk about the retro energies and direct energies and how you use them differently. So basically, the first half of October, we'll say through, of course, the 18th, because that's when everything goes direct. It's very strong in this, and this lingers throughout October, but it starts to get lighter and lighter as the month goes on, and as the month goes on, it gets more into these energies. And then the 3rd through the 17th of November is really, really strong with this energy, okay? So in retrograde time, we want to deal with what comes up more rather than trying to do future planning or, think too much ahead. We want to clear out clutter in any area of our lives, our health, our relationships, our houses, our desk. We want to leave things unscheduled because last minute magic can show up, and the more space you have to receive it, the better. This is a fantastic time for research, not as much the big launches and decisions and agreements and all of this stuff, unless it's unavoidable, but researching these things and making, your pros and cons list, getting information so that you can strike when the iron's hot. The retro time, so, it's basically all of October, but especially through around the 18th, we want to wrap up loose ends and finish old projects. Also, retrogrades are known for confusion, where You can't see that far ahead. You're not sure about what you want to do with any of these kind of things, you know. And if you know that that's happening, then it's okay, because you know that it's likely going to clear. It's a time to be in the moment, and it's a time to honor the flow and not force anything. Now, as we get later in October, you'll start to feel the clarity coming back, especially once we get into November, the zest and ideas for new projects, things like big launches, like getting your book out, your creative babies of any sort, your big decisions, your agreements, your paperwork, your investing, your moves, anything like that, future planning, and that back to push and initiate mode away from the don't force mode is another important change that starts to evolve as October goes on. And the more you can do these things in this November 3rd through 17th, you'll have all of the oomph of the direct motion. And I always liken this time to when the tide is going out. Retrograde is like when the tide is going in. If you try to push a message in a bottle out on the shore, you know, to go out to the sea, it's probably going to come bobbing right back to you. That's why these things are better indicated in the retrograde time. But as we move into the direct time, it's time to put your boat afloat, to have the action of the tides going out, you know, to put your bottle out to sea, to put all of your energy out there, because you have oomph. Now, as we get into the 18th, the tides from the Venus perspective start slowly rolling in, okay? But there is quite a bit of usable, what I call usable energy for the rest of November. And I'm just giving you this little sneak peek to understand this, even though we're talking about October, because October is more in this retrograde mode. And then November is more in this direct mode, you see? So this will help you to better guide your actions in October to understand the energies of November more. But you will have some usable energy for the rest of November. You just have to use it with caution. And if you want to get a sneak peek about this, we'll talk about this more in the November report. But look for Annie Botticelli Venus Retrograde. I have a whole Venus and retrograde blog series. I've got a really great detailed video. And also my book, Planetology, How to Align with the Natural Rhythms of the Universe, has a very big section on these Venus retrograde energies. Okay, so now back to this energy in October. We also have at the beginning of the month, eclipse season is beginning, okay? Because the first eclipse is November 19th, but eclipse season starts around 4 to 6 weeks before the actual eclipse. So that places us right back here at the beginning of October. Okay, so besides this big wake up for these outer planets and Mercury, we've got eclipse season beginning. So, you know, those life-changing pieces of information, those life-changing experiences, those very big goodbyes, those very big hellos. And this is a very big wrap up, because this season holds the last eclipse in the Sagittarius Gemini cycle. So what we're wrapping up here, and this energy is starting to make itself manifest in October, which is why we're talking about it now. The Sagittarius Gemini eclipse cycle has been in effect since around March 2020. And everybody remembers that month will go down in infamy when the world shut down. So things wrapping up at this time. Also, if you want to have some context, you can think back. So basically it was, the eclipse cycle was from May 2020, but again, the 4 to 6 week period started us in March, through around January of 2022. Okay, so we're here in October, we're starting to get the pieces falling together of closing out this cycle. If you want to have context as to when the last time that cycle happened, the Sagittarius Gemini eclipse cycle, it was around 2010 to 2012. So you might see some similar storylines that came up at that time. Now what we're starting in this new cycle is the Taurus Scorpio eclipse cycle. And of course, we'll go into way more details about this in the November and December reports when the actual eclipses occur, but it's important for you to know these things now, because the eclipse season starts in early October. So think back to the end of 2002 and to like through 2003, and then the second half of 2012 to early 2014. Then we've got now August 2021 through the end of 2023. And the reason why we have August here is because we do start to see a few months even before the eclipse cycle begins that sometimes little hints will come in. So that's very, very sensitive, might be harder to see that energy. So we'll just put it back to October 2021 through the end of 2023 is the Taurus-Scorpio cycle. So the things that are coming in now are going to really be big players through the end of 2023. And we'll go into details about exactly where that hits in your chart in the November and December reports. For our purposes for October, just know that it's a big wrap up of the old eclipse cycle and the big beginning of the new eclipse cycle as this eclipse season starts this month. Okay, so I've given you lots of information to help you make the most of October 2021 and beyond. If you would like even more information, definitely go to anniehelpsyou.com. That is the interface for all of the things that I do for you each month, the connection to my podcasts and my Pinterest and my school and my blogs and all of that you can find there. If you would like to be an astrologer as your profession or just to do it to help your friends and family and yourself, you will love my Becoming a Professional Astrologer Mastery course. If you think I put a lot of details into these monthly reports, month after month, year after year, you should see what goes on, the comprehensive nature of that course, which you can see at lumelife.com, L-U-M-E, life.com. I hope you have a wonderful month, and I'll see you next month. Bye!